Hey guys, it's Rose. We are continuing week 2 topic bullying. Um, Today is kind of just going to be a story time. I'm going to tell you a couple different stories where I've had bullying in my life, how I dealt with it, who I talked to, and how it's affected my life today. Um, let's start in chronological order. So, like I said before in one of my previous videos, I was raised at an at-home daycare, so I had a lot of friends pre-made that I didn't have to make myself. We were kids, so we kind of just all got along and played around and whatever. The bullying really started when I hit school age, when I went to elementary school. There's a distinct memory I have, and it's stayed with me all these years. Was second grade, and we were tracing our names on little note cards on our desks. And as I've said before, I have a very unique last name. I'm going to go with the alias Snotgrass right now. And if any of you recognize, this is from a book that actually helped me a lot. It's a little tiny little book for elementary kids, and it's called The Worst Last Name in Third Grade. And the teacher's last name is Snotgrass. So that's the name I'm going with because it's very closely related to my actual real last name. But as you can imagine, second graders were, 4 years old, and you're tracing your name on a little note card, and these two boys came up and they're like, "Oh, Snodgrass." And they pushed me out of my chair, and they pretty much started like going off on a tangent from my last name to my weight. I was a chubby child, and I'm not a small person today, but back then I was really, really chubby. And it just went off on a tangent, and the teacher did nothing. She saw it all happening. She was sitting at her desk and she did nothing. So I thought I deserved it. I thought it was okay. I went home and I told my mom, crying, and she told me that they were picking on me because they liked me. And as I've said before, and I will reiterate many, many times, that's bullshit. They didn't like me. They liked that I was an easy target, sure. They liked that I didn't complain. They liked that I didn't really cry. They liked that they could pick on me and no one would stop them. But they didn't like me. Not in the way my mom was talking about, not in the way many adults talk about. But that was definitely the start of bullying, and that's definitely left a big impact on me because now I'm really scared whenever someone starts talking to me that they'll put me down. And I think that's part of the reason why I don't talk to guys as much anymore, because my first real interaction with guys, with kids, with boys that could have possibly become more, was them hitting me, beating me, and bullying me about a name that I had no control over. You have no control over your last name until you get married, but I didn't have a control over my last name, and no one had bullied me about my last name before. Daycare kids didn't care what my last name was. My parents didn't raise me saying, be careful about your last name. People are going to make fun of it. It was just my last name. So that didn't help. Yeah, as I said, I was a chubby child, so I got picked on a lot for that. I was also commonly referred to as a teacher's pet, which I never understood that. I wasn't a teacher's pet. I just like to do my work. I like to learn. I like to read. I was always on the honor roll. I was one of those advanced kids that had a separate vocabulary list every week because I could spell out pterodactyl when kids were having trouble spelling train, you know? So I got picked on a lot for that. Nerd, geek, weirdo, a lot of times. I did dance at this time in elementary school, and so a lot of kids thought I was weird for wanting to do dance when I was a big girl. And it wasn't any easier at recess. Like I said, I didn't have a lot of friends. My friends were the daycare kids, so when I was at school, I didn't have anyone until I reached Girl Scouts, and even then, like, they had their own friends, and I just had them, so I was that third wheel tagging along, not saying anything because they were playing with their friends that they had outside of Girl Scouts. So at recess, you would find me normally sitting by the recess proctor teachers. just helping them out, untangling ropes, handing out passes. I didn't really do much. That didn't help. Kids growing up need to be social, and I wasn't social. So I got picked on for that. Teacher's pet, weirdo, fat. That was a very common insult. And that's elementary school. A lot of the bullying was just insults, except for that time when the kids pushed me out of my chair. But no one really touched me out after that. Like, I wasn't hit or anything, but words do a lot of damage. A lot of damage. And then we hit middle school, and I thought things would be better at middle school. I felt like we were all mature, we're grown up, we're 13 years old, we're in our teenagers now. We're gonna hit the world running, no one's gonna bully anyone, it's gonna be all roses. 13-year-old me got a slap in the face that year. Middle school was worse. I was a really, really tall girl, on top of being kind of on the bigger side, and I didn't have noticeable girl assets. I'm part of the flat-chested community. And around this time, I contacted head lice. Everyone does. But my natural hair is a bit unruly, so to fight it, my mom and my aunt decided to pretty much shave my head. And that didn't help because now I looked like a boy. And the insults got very creative. Especially when people didn't know I was a girl and they thought I was a boy at first, and then when I told them I was a girl and they'd be like, you lied to me, fucking whatever, insults. And I'm just like, it didn't help. It did not help. And then I also got braces at this time. And if anyone out there has had braces, you know about the rubber bands that sometimes you have to wear where you hook it onto a hook on your braces, and it looks like you have these weird things in your mouth, like spider webs, rubber bands. And I was a good kid. So when the dentist said, put these rubber bands on in the morning, take them off when you eat, and put them back on after you're done eating lunch, that's what I did. Well, 7th grade, I had PE right after lunch. And so after getting changed into PE clothes, I walked out, and I never understood the layout of my middle school. The mirrors and the sinks and everything for washing your hands and stuff were like in the hallway instead of inside the changing rooms. So to put my bands back in, I was out in the middle of the hallway in front of the gym, and these 8th graders walked by and still looked like a dude. And they started calling out, ew, dude's picking his nose. The dyke's picking his nose. No, no, no. I wasn't picking my nose. I was nowhere near my nose. I was putting a rubber band in my mouth. But it made me super self-conscious, so I just chose not to put rubber bands in. And ever since that day, I never wore my rubber bands. So I'm surprised I'm not wearing braces right now because my teeth never really got fixed. But that small passing comment of 8th graders, kids a year older than me, had such a huge impact on my life because I chose never to wear rubber bands again because it made me super self-conscious, Even though I knew I wasn't picking my nose and stuff, having kids laugh at me and say that kind of made me feel gross. So I never did it. I never wore my rubber bands again. Yeah. And all throughout elementary and middle school, after that first time with the kids in 2nd grade, I never told my parents about me being bullied. I never told my friends about me being bullied. I never spoke to anyone because if all I was going to get back was they're bullying you because they like you, what's the point? They weren't giving me help. They weren't telling me how to, fight, stand up for myself, fight back or anything. Violence is wrong. Don't put your hands out on people. Go turn around, ignore it. That doesn't help. It still happens. Bullying is still happening. It just means that you're an easy target now because you're not going to do anything. And that's what happened. I was an easy target. I'm getting emotional. Yeah, so middle school wasn't really my cup of tea. And then we hit high school. And high school was supposed to be amazing. Everyone always is talking about, if I could go back to high school, I would. High school is the best 4 years of your life. La da 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 da. High school was hell. For me and for probably a lot of kids. It was absolute hell. If I could wipe it from my memory, I would. So much shit happened in those 4 years that it just, oh, my voice. It just gets crazy. Freshman year, I was depressed, and I didn't know what depressed was because no one had talked to me about it. We didn't have classes on it. Home ec didn't talk about it. Health safety class didn't talk about it. I didn't know what it was, but I was depressed. And in one of my classes, the teacher had paper that covered the desk and pens at any given point because it was a creative class. And you could write, draw, whatever, write notes, whatever on the piece of paper, and then the next morning it would be replaced with a clean piece of paper. And I decided to write poems. And I guess the poems were a little dark because it caught the attention of another student who told their parents, who called the school, who told the teacher, who figured out it was my desk, who figured out it was me writing. And I got pulled aside and taken to my counselor, who was no help. If I could say his real name, I would. I would shame him because he was no help. In my high school, you were given a counselor based on your last name, the initial of your last name. So me and my sisters all had the same counselor, and we can all agree he was an elitist prick who didn't care about students whatsoever. But they told him, and so he had to pull me out of class in front of everyone. And they stated the reason why I was getting pulled out of class. So everyone knew that I was getting pulled out because of concerning words written on a school desk. That did not help my image. I was trying to portray a new image, high school, fresh start. And all of a sudden I was this sad, depressed kid that got pulled aside because of suicidal thoughts. I wasn't suicidal. I didn't want to end my life. But that's what they thought. And the counselor bullied me. And this is how bad it was. The counselor, I think he was 50 years old, 50-year-old man, bullied this 15-year-old girl because of something she didn't even know she had. I didn't know I was depressive. I didn't know that. He bullied me because of words that were written on a desk in a poem format that really were just me putting out emotions, not really thinking of anything of it. I sat in his office, and he sat there like the elitist prick he was, feet propped up on the desk, leaning back, no care in the world, and looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You're going to hurt yourself." How was I supposed to take that? And I'm still nervous around adults and people I don't know, so I'm sitting there all hunched over, and I was like, no, I'm not. And you're either going to hurt yourself or others. You have suicidal tendencies. Don't tell a 15-year-old that. If I was anyone else, I would take those words to heart and be like, oh, yeah, I do. I'm going to go hurt myself. What the fuck? So I'm sitting there on the verge of crying because I have no clue what's going on. I was just humiliated in front of all these people in my class. And the class was a mix of every age, 9th through 12th. So I was humiliated in front of all these people that I didn't know, told that I was suicidal, blank face to my face, and then told that they weren't going to call my parents. We'll figure this out in-house. We don't need to involve the parents. If I was really suicidal, that would have been a fuck up. Don't tell the parents. What type of support system? And this is a common thing in schools. Counselors and the teachers don't give a shit. They just want their next paycheck. They don't give a shit. So I got sent back to class, and everyone's whispering about me. And news spreads fast in high school. Gossip Queens rule the school. So the next day I'm in a different class, and this girl walks up to me and goes, "You're that suicidal chick, aren't you?" I cried. And I hate crying in front of people. I started crying, and the teacher had to excuse me, and I had to run to the restroom and try to calm myself down. And that was probably my first panic attack. Honesty. That simple a simple poem written on a desk devolved so much so that I was crying in the bathroom 48 hours later. So yeah, the bullying in elementary school was just words, which, while not harmless, pretty mediocre. Bullying in middle school was teasing and body shaming. Again, pretty mediocre. High school was when it hit. Like, bullying got, like, dangerous. Very dangerous. But that was freshman year. Yay, freshman year! So much fun! Now I'm going to share something with you that I kind of regret, but you can't run away from your past. So it's going to follow me everywhere. It's out on computers. It's newspaper format. But my older sister was in 12th grade when I was in 9th. And this was near the end of the year. And one of her friends was in newspaper. And I didn't know that. I didn't know her friend was in newspaper at this time. And I was sitting with a couple of my friends, Girl Scout friends, and kids that I knew from middle school, so they were familiar, at lunch one time. And this girl came over and she said, "Hey, I'm your sister's friend over there, and I just have a question for you." And I was like, "Oh, okay. You have a question? All right, I'll answer a question." And the question was, it was a very loaded question. And at the time when I was in freshman school, it was about the border crisis. And I gave a joking answer because I was in a good mood that day. I jokingly said something back. I didn't mean for it to be taken out of context or anything. It was just a joke. It didn't mean anything. I knew it wasn't factually based. But she said okay, and she went away. And then next week, I got pulled into the principal's office. And I automatically assumed it was about the poems, but I was like, that already was fixed like months ago. Why am I being pulled into the principal's office now? And they said, "Hey, do you feel threatened? Do you want to switch schools?" And I was like, "What?" Super confused. I'm like, "Are you trying to tell me to switch schools? I was doing a good job. I thought I was a good student." And they showed me the newspaper. I had made front page news of the school's newspaper. And apparently a bunch of kids and parents had already contacted the principal of the school and had wanted me kicked out. And not only was it on a paper format, it was on their website too. I was stalked. I was followed home. The school security guard had to keep an eye on me because kids tried to jump me. And I was upset because I didn't know this. And I told the principals this, and they took me to the newspaper teacher, and we told him this. The girl who asked a question of me and then published it under my name didn't tell me she was a reporter for the school, didn't ask if she could use my statement, didn't ask if she could use my name, and didn't say she was asking the question for a newspaper article. So the teacher understandably was upset. They took down the webpage. They tried to pull back all the newspapers. Of course, they couldn't get everyone. I still have one back home in a filing cabinet. They released a public apology without saying my name again, but the damage had already been done. I wouldn't say I was a well-known person at the school at this time. 9th grade, it wasn't really well known, but I was someone that they recognized in the hallways because I have a very distinct look, and I had friends who were in every kind of clique. You know, the saying, I had a finger in every pie. um, so the damage had already been done. And again, I was confronted in class asking if I was the girl on the piece of paper on the front page of the paper. And the bullying didn't stop there. No, the school went one step further with their bullying, and they published the whole incident in the yearbook. So every time I go back to my freshman yearbook, I am reminded of a joking comment that got out of control that made my life living hell. And it follows me to this day. And I've tried to run away from it, and I've tried to ignore it, and I've tried to pretend it didn't happen, but it did. And coming from a small town, people don't forget very easily. So I was always reminded of it, and I will always be reminded of it. It's on my permanent record now, even though it's not like you pull up my FBI article and you see it there, but it's out there. So it kind of sucks that the school allowed this bullying to happen, and the school participated in the bullying that happened. The principals, the counselors, the front desk ladies, the newspaper, the yearbook committee, they all had a hand in bullying this 15-year-old shy, nervous, scared little girl. So much so that for the next 3 years, I didn't step a toe out of line. I did nothing that would draw attention to myself. I kept myself closed. I wore baggy sweatshirts. I didn't step out of my comfort zone. I had maybe 3 friends for the last 3 years, and one of them was my best friend. And even that was kind of hesitant because we had a huge fight, I think, senior year. And it didn't help me. It didn't help me. I didn't form relationships. I didn't have friendships. I didn't join any teams. I did nothing. I was in my lane, just go to school in the morning, do my classes, get home in the afternoon. I did nothing because I was so scared that if I took a step out of line, I would become the center of attention again and be bullied for stuff that shouldn't have been taken out of context, shouldn't have been published in the first place. And I'm scared of people like me, little girls and boys, who think they're in a safe space in school and think that they can joke around and say something, and then all of a sudden it gets blown up in their faces and they're terrified. So I'm scared of that happening to someone else. And like I said, I didn't know I was depressed at this time. So that kind of, and what's funny is, well, it's not funny. It's sad. But after freshman year, when the counselor said that I was a danger to hurting myself and others, he probably didn't think of how true that statement would become my junior year. All the years of bullying, of being thought lesser than, of having kids jump me and call me horrible names, of being teased for a name that I had no control over, for being teased about my height and weight and my hair and my eyes, 4 eyes, brace face, chubby cheeks. It could have gotten really bad. And luckily my best friend was there, Marie was there, and she pulled me back. We were both experiencing the same things and we hadn't realized it. And so we talked to each other and helped each other out. And she's my support system. She really is. I love her so much, like a sister. She helped me survive those horrid 4 years. And of course, I went to homecoming and prom because I only go once, but I didn't enjoy them. I was by myself most of the time, feeling awkward. And here's another story that's been eaten at me, and only 3 people know the truth. And here I am, sharing it. Hold on. My nose is running and I'm like, I'm like getting emotional. Only 3 people know the truth. Here I am sharing it anonymously. There was this kid in my grade, and after high school, thankfully, he moved away. I don't know where. I don't care where. I'm gonna say his real name because I don't care, and it's kind of a common name. So if anyone finds out, it's whatever. His name was Marcos. It was weird. It was Marcus, but it was pronounced weird. Marcos. And he was a fuckboy, through and through a fuckboy. He went through the entire volleyball team, probably the entire cheerleading team. They all loved him, and he was their best friend even after like they slept together. They still talked to each other and pretended they were best friends. Like, oh, he's dating your best friend now? Wasn't he just dating you a week ago? Oh, you're still talking to him? Okay, cool. That kind of guy. It was sophomore year. It was they were doing this after school thing. It was like Young Life, but not like Young Life if you know what Young Life is. Where they kind of just had games set up after school at like 7 o'clock at night, dance in the gym or whatever. It was free to the public. You could just come and enjoy and hang out and hang with your friends and whatnot. And my little sister really wanted to go because, like I said, it was open to the public. So my little sister really wanted to go. She wanted to see the high school. She wanted to, explore and whatnot. And of course, since she was young, my parents were like, you have to go with your sister. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll go. And I found a couple people that I knew and I talked to them and whatnot and walked around. My sister ditched me and I was like, whatever, she's can do what she wants. Found myself in the gym. And I see this girl I had several classes with sitting on the floor back against the wall across the room. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go talk to her. I don't dance, I'm self-conscious, whatever. I'm not going to do anything. So I'm walking across the room, trying to stay to the edges, trying not to be noticed, trying to get to her. And Marcos runs up and starts grinding against me. Before I could even flip and freak out and wonder what's happening, he runs off. And I'm standing there, shocked, horrified, wondering what the hell just happened. And I look over and I see his group of friends and I see one of his buddies pass him a $20 bill. He had been dared to grind on me in the center of the gym. I made my way up to the other side of the gym and I slid against the wall and I started crying. And the girl that I shared classes with was really concerned. And so I told her, I was like, Marcos just ran up on me, grinded on me. And I just saw his buddies pass him money. I'm pretty sure it was a dare. And she was like, do you want me to call someone? And I was like, you need to call my sister so that she can call her parents and have us pick us up because I can't stay here any longer. And Marcos came up to me and he's laughing and grinning and nudging his buddies. And he's like, it was just a joke. Take a joke. It wasn't just a joke. Not to me. It lowered my self-worth so much. I was crying so bad my sister couldn't understand me. And when I got in the car, my parents tried to ask me what was wrong and I wouldn't tell them. I just said I was overwhelmed and I wanted to go home. And then I told my best friend. So the 3 people that know, Marcos, the girl in the gym, my best friend. And now you guys. And I want you to know that if anyone touches you against your permission, if anyone does something like that, something so gross, you need to tell someone. Keeping it locked in did a number on my self-esteem and my self-worth. You need to talk to someone that you trust, and you need to have their support when you go and talk to an adult. And even though I just went on that whole rant just a while earlier about how the whole school was bullying me, that doesn't include every adult. There are some really good adults out there that really just want to help you, and you need to go and talk to them because they can be charged. I was sexually assaulted that night. And I know a lot of people think sexually assaulted means rape, but it doesn't. I was sexually assaulted because I was touched against my will in a sexual manner and money traded hands, and I felt violated. I hadn't talked to guys. I hadn't held hands with a boy. I hadn't kissed a boy, and I was suddenly grinded on like a piece of meat because of a stupid dare, because someone dared this fuckboy kid to go and grind on the ugly girl crossing the room. So yeah, I was bullied a lot, and I've gotten better. My last name doesn't bug me as much anymore. I've learned to embrace it. I actually love it now. My weight is still kind of a touchy subject, but I'm learning to love who I am body-wise. I'm slowly opening up more and talking to more people. But it gets hard when you hear whispers and you're reminded of years of abuse, years of torments and name calling and pinching and pushing and assault, and it's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to have a day to yourself to wallow in misery, but don't let it become the normal. Have someone that you can reach out and talk to and get help. Therapy was the best choice I could have made. And I urge you guys, please, if you ever felt the way I did, if you ever experienced anything that I did, get help. And I know this was a heavy half hour. But I did warn you guys, we're going to be discussing some heavy topics. You know, I've gotten better. I got help. I've been working through my issues. And I think I think I've become a better person now, especially since I can relate to a lot of people. But definitely therapy was a good point for me, and having my best friend Marie there to pull me out whenever I got down too deep. So I just want you guys to know that you're not alone, and that bullying happens no matter where you are, and that you just need to stand up for yourself and get help. Don't let them continue putting you down, because you matter. You are worth something to someone somewhere. You are worth it to stay and fight. You are worth it. Okay? All right. Whew, heavy topic over. So that's it for today. Like I said, Friday, 2 days from now. It's going to kind of be like a wrap up, and then I'll introduce next week's topic. As always, if there's a topic that you want me to cover specifically, put it in the comments. Any questions you want to know about me, put it in the comments. Hit that subscribe button so that you know when I post. And keep blooming. Beautiful flowers. Love you.